this team needs a third option, at least a reliable third option. Or if it becomes a third option by committee, what have you, they need that to make this offense completely open up and open up to all the other elements of it. It's the fear of the unknown with Jake. If Jake Fromm is given, which he should be compared to Mike Glennon, he should be given a starting job up in there. And I don't know what it is about it, but it just seems like the Eagles have not had an answer for quarterbacks who get the ball out quickly.
Got John McMullen, Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365, and we are joined by a living legend, or at least I'm making him out to be because I get all hooked up whenever I talk about him. From NJ.com, is he crying?
I'm sorry. I'm just thank you so much for being choked up for me. You know, I heard this. It helped. Thank you so much.
There is no crying in football. Suck it up, Franklin. Get the job. All right, thanks, man.
Oh, sorry. All right.
If you had to grade the Eagles last night from an A+ to an F, all things considered, whatever curve you need to grade on because of the postponement of the game and the quality or lack thereof of the opponent, what kind of grade would you give the Eagles for last night's performance?
I'd probably give it a B-. And the reason why I do that is I look at the fact that it should have been, the gap should have been larger than what it was, and especially the fact that they fell into that 10-point deficit. They turned the ball over twice, especially the fluke. I understand the interception was a fluke one, but not holding two hands on the ball while climbing the pocket, and that fumble with Jalen Hurts. Besides that, the way they came back, the way they didn't panic, because sorry, if I was in that situation, I'm looking like down 10-0 and the Joe Webb game starts breaking their mind, everything else. But I thought overall they came back, they played solidly defensively for the most part. The offense established a run early, and overall I thought it was a B-.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up B-. I said if the Eagles just forget about their A game, if they bring their B- game, they'll have no problem beating the Washington football team. And by the way, the New York Giants, we'll get to that in a little bit, but coming up over a 5-day span. You're right, Chris. I mean, you look at the final score and you say, well, they had 519 offensive yards. They're running the football at will. Jalen Hurts had his best game passing, I would argue, the entire year. He's getting other people involved. Jalen Reagor's involved. Greg Ward's involved. Quez Watkins gets a couple touches. I think that was a positive. But you look up in the fourth quarter, and it was 2017. So if I ask you to nitpick, what's your biggest nitpicks with this game besides that early sloppiness? So we acknowledge that, but why 2017? Why did it get to that point early in the fourth quarter?
I think they played more passive zone toward the especially in that second half, and they allowed Gilbert to start to find the little parts here and there. I started to see a little bit. I don't know if it was more of trying to keep players fresh for Sunday's game, but you started to see more Teron Jackson, more Milton Williams on the field a little bit. So I think that helped out in what the final score is defensively. Offensively, I know that Washington started losing a lot of players in that secondary, but I just would have hammered the ball home as much as possible to try to run the clock a little bit more, get that game over with, get over and out. So I think they started to do that a little bit more, and obviously they weren't converting as well as they did in the first half, toward the end of the first half on those third downs or some of those drives. So I thought that prolonged things a little bit, kept Washington around a little bit. But I mean, to be honest, I thought like it was one of those things where it got close, but you didn't feel like in that second half, like, all right, they got close. Like, could they find this? But it just seemed like the Eagles had all the momentum toward the end. But I'd probably say those would be the biggest things I'd probably nitpick on them.
Yeah, I didn't see the Eagles. Even when it got to 3, I didn't see them losing that game. All right, Chris, couple of weeks now, a couple of months ago, Eagles changed as a team from an RPO team to a just flat out run the ball down your throat team. And they did so with Miles Sanders out of the lineup. And both Howard and Boston Scott were dynamite for the Eagles. And Miles Sanders came back, and some people were like, yeah, sorry, And Miles, you've been Wally pipped. It's going to be Howard and Scott going forward. You can grab some good pine time. He's had back-to-back 120-plus yard games for the team, including a career high 131 last night. The Eagles still need this guy. They have to have this guy. As much as I like Howard, and he had some key runs last night, they need a guy who can make a splash running play every once in a while. And Miles Sanders is the only guy left on his team. Agree or disagree?
I agree. He's their biggest lightning rod. I think when I look at it, he's the guy who can take. I mean, that one run where it looked like he was bottled up and he bounced it outside and he picked up, I think, like 15, 20 yards on that. That's the type of guy you can't give up on a guy. You have to make sure you feed the ball on that. I think he's gotten a lot better ever since he came back from the injury of being a lot more patient and letting the holes develop in front of him. I mean, there were a couple of times like he did a stutter step right before actually accelerating through the hole to give that line time to open things up. And I think that patience, watching how Howard was running, watching how Scott was running, that patience allowed him to just accelerate, to allow those holes to open up and then accelerate. And you're starting to see the benefits of him allowing that to happen. So you never want to say an injury helps out anybody at the end. But I think when you look at Miles Sanders, I think that time on the sideline allowed him to see what was being successful for his offense that definitely helped him out for lately in these last few games. I mean, with the career highs, and I think the Eagles and Sanders himself, I think like, hey, you know what, maybe that was worth it for going for the end of this stretch run here.
That's interesting, Chris, because you bring up Miles getting a chance to take a step back and watch others perform in this offense behind this offensive line and how successful Jordan Howard was and Boston Scott. Jalen Hurts got an opportunity to do that for lesser time, but he got to watch Gardner Minshew and against the Jets, and we all acknowledge it's the Jets and that's the context, but he did get other people involved, Gardner, as I was saying. Do you think Jalen took a look at that and said, you know what, I got to maybe mix a few more people in than just Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith? Because for a while, the passing attack was just Dallas and Devontae.
Yeah, I think so, because the Eagles were starting to become pretty easy to defend. It's like, okay, you see those two guys, okay, we got them all bottled up, put a safety, go 8-9 in the box, and then basically you stop their offense. But I think it, especially with them spreading the ball a little more. I mean, it ripped this guy before lately a lot in the last few weeks. Jalen Reagor had a good game last night, and when you get guys like him and Watkins starting to play a lot better, this team needs a third option, at least a reliable third option. Or if it becomes a third option by committee or what have you, they need that to make this offense completely open up to all the other elements of it that they have. So I think overall that they needed that, and I like the way that Hurts started distributing the ball a little bit more, making them tougher to defend the pass thing. Because now when you look at it, it's like, okay, we can't shade a safety to Devonta Smith all the time, and we can't try to bracket Dallas Goedert. Like, oh, how do we make sure we got to account for the speed of Reagor and Watkins? How do you worry about now the backs as well too? I mean, I think that's the one thing I want to see him do a little bit. Hurts do a little bit more, is trying to get those backs a little bit more involved in the passing game. I mean, Sanders I think had like two catches for like 15 yards, something like that. If just the fact if you could just spread the defense out a little bit more and get more of those one-on-ones, I think they could be even more dynamic. I mean, it's hard to believe.
Chris, I want to back it up about 9 months ago and take us all back to the introductory press conference of Nick Sirianni, which, let's be honest, here in Philadelphia went over like a fart in church because he didn't really handle himself all that well. But one of the things I truly appreciated about what he said that day was, I'm not going to try and put the square peg in the round hole. I'm going to come in and evaluate the talent, and I'm going to coach, and I'm going to build a system that accentuates the players that I have. I love when any coach says that, because I think that's check out Bill Belichick and the many different iterations that he had up there in New England. He coaches to his talent. It helps when you have Tom Brady as your quarterback, but he's done a whole bunch of different things for all those championships. I think every coach should have that philosophy when they take over a team. It's easier said than done, but Sirianni has done just that. He's coached to the talent that he's had this year, and I don't think he's getting enough credit for it. Agree or disagree?
I used to thought when I first heard like Sirianni said when he first said that, I'm thinking like, okay, it's just coach speak. It sounds good, and that's just a way to make it say like, okay, I can do whatever. But like he's truly like believing that, and he's shown it when it comes on the field. I mean, he mentions his brother a lot, who coaches in college, about how he adapted. He went with a spread offense, then a wing T one year, and I think it was another one like a pro style another year. And you hear it's like, okay, he's just saying that because just to say that, but he truly did. I mean, I think if you look at the genesis of what he wanted his offense to be, he wants to be throwing a lot more than what the Eagles have done, but he's noticed and recognized that he has an offensive line that can open holes. He has running backs, four really truly running backs who can make plays and get positive yards on the field. And he's basically incorporated that around what he truly wants to do. And I think next year, I think we may see a little bit more passing, but for the right now, what Sirianni has done and basically said, "Hey, I got these ingredients. I need to make sure I make the right dish here." It was almost like an episode of Chopped where he just had a different. He had stuff that didn't look like they went together. He found a way to mesh it all together, and it worked out well. So you have to give Sirianni credit for that, and I think you also have to get the rest of the coaching staff as well too, because somebody had to get in his ear a little bit to say, hey, you know what, ease off the passing a little bit, maybe start focusing on the run. So I think Sirianni and the rest of that offensive coaching staff did a good job with that.
Is that person the run game coordinator, Chris? Because you got some size. You still have some youth. I got some size to me, but I don't have that youth. So, can you play offensive guard for the Eagles? Because it seems like anybody can. Now we're down to Suopeta. Who cares? We're going to run for 238.
Yeah, for me, I don't have I get blown back. I mean, there's a couple of things where Opeta got blown back and Jonathan like got inside and like that would be that 10 times worse. But when you look at the way you can't give enough credit to Jeff Stoutland. I mean, the guy's seen a lot of football over his time. I mean, Nick Saban had him on his staff because he believed in the way that he blocked it. He wanted him back because he saw how well he does, and especially when you look at Stoutland, especially when we look at those offensive line practices, you see he gets down to every single detail about the angle of how the guy goes, of how, and he's not shy about it. I mean, I know most offensive line coaches are usually pretty gruff guys and pretty frank, but to see the player, and you think it'll wear over players over time, but the way that he's done that, and the players still love him. And then I think I wouldn't be surprised if he did the same approach when it came to Nick too, just going, "What are we doing?" Minus a word, and then just say, "Hey, you know what? Let's try to do this a little bit more. I think we have the horses to be able to run the ball well." So I wouldn't be surprised if he said that a little bit, brought that up a little bit, and they came up with some different wrinkles that they haven't shown before, like especially a few weeks ago. And I think overall, you have to. I think Stoutland had a big part in that happening.
Speaking of showing the love, how about the love that Greg Ward got last night? He makes a catch along the sidelines. He gets 12, 14 teammates over to celebrate with him on a 9-yard catch. Then he gets a touchdown, and Lane Johnson's trying to lift him up into the stands. He might be the most popular guy on this team.
He's one of. I mean, he's the big brother of that wide receiver room. I mean, when you look at his story about how he had to convert from a quarterback at Houston to a wide receiver, and he played in the AAF, and he led the team in receptions last year. And that's his part. It's crazy. Like he led the team in receptions last year. We barely see making an impact on the field this year. I don't know. He said he just believed it, kept just basically wanting to be ready at any time he was called, but he I think he atoned for a couple of those mistakes he made earlier in the season. I mean, when you look at the pass, the Philly special pass against San Francisco, when you look at the drop he had a couple weeks ago near the goal line, I think finally something went his way. And I don't know if that's one of the things where a team was finally happy to see that, and just basically the type of guy he is. So I think it was more of that. But overall, I think for what he is as one of your reserve guys, like a wide receiver 4 or 5 on this roster, and a contributor in special teams, stuff like that for it. Yeah, I think he team rallied around that.
And he's got a little Chris Carter in him, a very little, but he's got 3 touchdowns and 4 catches this year. It would have been he had 2 catches. All he does is catch touchdowns. Isn't it more important though the fact that Jalen Reagor got involved? So we look at that two-play sequence, which really sealed the game for the Eagles. You had the wide receiver screen to Rager, which went for 34 yards. And then you had the touchdown to Greg Ward. Um, they need Jalen Reagor involved in this offense because they don't have anybody else. What does it mean to get him some confidence, get him some touches, get him involved, get him going back in the right direction? Because let's be honest, Chris, we're there every day. He was struggling with some confidence issues, no matter what he says.
And that was key. I mean, so not only do you drop those two passes against the Giants, you had that mistake on the kickoff return. You come out on punt returns. I mean, I don't know if it came across with a TV copy, but he was being booed a
Oh
lot.
yeah.
Every time he came out there, they announced Jalen Reagor, and he was getting booed a lot. So I think just those little simple things. I think when he ran that slant, I believe it was a slant, but when they gave him that little short passes and he was able to turn up and make that, I think that was key. And it just appears like I think appears like that's going to be the type of player he is. I mean, I know it's basic saying, oh wow, if anybody has confidence, they can do well. But I think for him, truly, it's one of those things where he needs that. And if one thing goes bad, it just starts to start a chain reaction of stuff continuing to go bad. So I think that's huge for them. They need a guy. They need a true speed, a consistent speed threat. Because you see Watkins and he does some stuff here and there that's good, but you see pretty much they just try to go Watkins downfield. They need a guy who can not only be that threat on those jet sweeps, not only be the guy who could be a wide receiver screen guy, but who could run all the routes on that tree. He knows how to do that. It's a matter of consistency with him. So if he keeps that confidence going and he can consistently play well, that's going to be huge for this offense.
All right, Chris. Over the last 4 days, the four NFC East teams have played each other, and the Eagles easily handled, is one way to describe it, last night, the Washington football team. And on Sunday, the Dallas Cowboys easily handled the New York Giants. Well, the Giants are coming in here to Philadelphia in 5 days. And if you compare those two games, you'd say, well, the Eagles are easily going to handle the Giants, except turn back the clock 16 days, and the Giants beat the Eagles. So give me your read on what needs to be done, how the matchup looks like right now. Has anything significantly changed in those 16 going forward to 21 days that can deter the Eagles from continuing to win games in their division?
I want to see. I think the Eagles should win this game, but I'm a little worried when it comes to that. I really think the rest thing plays a factor in this, especially their physical team. We mentioned we always talk about the run game. That takes a toll not only on the linemen, that takes a toll on the running backs too. And it appeared like the Eagles almost used it as in like a baseball. They wanted to use Sanders a lot early on, but then they brought Jordan Howard to be the closer, and that's why we didn't see Sanders much in the fourth quarter. And they wanted to just keep him rested. So I'm more worried about that because you'll have the Giants on normal rest, the Eagles still feeling the effects from Tuesday's game. The other thing I'm worried about is the fear of the unknown with Jake. If Jake Fromm is given, which he should be compared to Mike Glennon, he should be given a starting job up in there. And I don't know what it is about it, but it just seems like the Eagles have not had an answer for quarterbacks who get the ball out quickly, who throw it accurately, and they continue to attack underneath. And I just have that feeling that, well, also had the fact that the Eagles have given up the most amount of yards and receptions, I believe, to tight ends this year. And then you have Evan Ingram on the other sideline. So I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a lot closer than what people think. I think the Eagles win, but just feel like this game is going to be a lot closer and pretty uncomfortable into the fourth quarter, even if it's a home game, just because it's the Giants and Eagles. So yeah,
That's okay. If there's a big tight end play to be made, Evan Ingram will drop the ball. He'll make a bunch of catches leading up to that, but when the game's on the line,
Kyle Rudolph will catch it. I don't know if he's healthy though. Kyle Rudolph, he's got those big Mickey Mouse hands with the yellow gloves. But you mentioned tweaks a little bit before, Chris, and I saw 3 interesting tweaks with the extra time. Slay was the obvious one, which worked pretty well as a decoy. Then they tried to steal from the Ravens, trying to get them to come offside on that potential 2-point conversion. So Nick always talks about watching other games, texting with the coaches. We love ball, blah, blah, blah. And then Fletcher Cox was a defensive end when he got the sack of Garrett Gilbert Grape, whatever you want to call him. Interesting tweaks with the extra time from the coaching staff. Is that a positive for you, or you just kind of take as just, hey, we're bored, let's try some different things?
I why not? I mean, I think everybody knows the team's not going to the Super Bowl, but you just want to. I think this year, was the year that was almost like a proving ground. Just to try some things. I actually kind of like the Fletcher Cox one at the end part, because I think it's more of a run defense guy. I know he's going to love being the inside like that 3 technique and trying to rush up the middle, but just to give a different look, especially if you have a tackle that's a little slower getting on to get up. I think Cox has a little bit quickness to actually make an impact, and if you get him. Say Hassan Ridgeway and Javon Hargrave on there, and if a team's just bad against bull rush, and you got those 3 going in it, I don't mind that tweak. Going back to the timeout thing, I saw it this week, and I'm sitting like, and then when the Eagles came up and did, I was like, oh, they're calling a freeze play. Oh, they're calling a freeze. They're just trying to do this. It's smart. The only thing I didn't like about it is they had to burn that timeout, and I thought that if they made that stop down there, they could have had a time to try to get another field goal before the half, because they only had the 2 instead of the 3. So I thought that was impactful. The Darius Slay one, I wouldn't be surprised if they come back to that. And the reason why I say it, without giving out way too much, I'm working on a story about Slay, but when it comes to Itawamba Community College, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, so I apologize.
What'd you just say?
Itawamba Community College. It's in Northeast Louisiana. He was very good. I mean, we've heard him talking about, oh, he's a receiver. Yeah, he was really good. And they say, hey, maybe you should go to cornerback a little bit more. But there was a game they had against one of the division rivals, and he ran a bubble screen, and he took it to the house after that. So we all know the speed he has. I mean, he showed that on that fumble, that country. I'll never forget that one. The country fumble.
Fumble. I love that. Yeah, that
it was
phraseology.
Great.
Yeah,
it was great. So would they put it on tape just to get teams to worry about it? Sure. But I wouldn't be surprised. He can run the ball, but he can catch the ball out that little backfield in that little weird loop motion. I could potentially see him using that down the line. If it comes down to it, and say if that Dallas game means something at the end, you throw it out there to try to really, really confuse them. I mean, all hands will be on deck. I see him using it.
All right, Chris, last one for me. And we're going to put you to the test the same way I kind of held John's feet to the fire earlier for something that in one way means a great deal and another way means absolutely nothing. And that's Pro Bowl selection. It's funny because John and I talked about the drop ball by Goddard last night that went off his foot and up in the air, and nobody knew it was an interception, including the referee. And then somebody goes, hey, I think he picked that off. So the ball. That'll go down as a interception for Jalen Reagor for the rest of his career. He had nothing to do with it being intercepted, but it's an interception. Kind of the same thing with Pro Bowls. 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 8 years from now, we'll look at somebody and go, ooh, a 4-time Pro Bowler. But we won't break it down. Did they make it as a 3rd choice, a 4th choice? Well, this guy was out. No, you're just either a Pro Bowler or a non-Pro Bowler. And we evaluate guys' entire careers, at least in part, on, how many Pro Bowls did they make? So there is some importance to it. How many Eagles are going to make this Pro Bowl first selection? Yeah, there'll be guys who will back off, and then they'll get in if they want. I know you got to wait till it's all over and said and done with. And then I think they have 80 guys altogether who make the Pro Bowl because there are so many replacements. But as of tonight, when they make the announcements, how many Eagles are going to get the Pro Bowl nod?
That's what I was going to go originally too, because like there's going to be a lot of guys that are bow out like, oh, I get the Pro Bowl bonus and I get the gifts that come with it, the trip. I won't play. Cool, perfect. That I go Darius Slay. I go Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata. I'll go with I think something tells you Elliott's not going to. It's not going to get in, but I'll stick with those four. I'll stick with those four. I think the offensive line is well represented, and then they throw in Slay on the other side. Oh, Hargrave. Good job, Chris. Javon Hargrave. I think they five. Yeah, I think
Hargrave
that.
over
Right.
Fletcher.
All
I think.
right.
Oh yeah, I think. Even though I know most guys are just going to look. Okay, let's go reputation because you always see the reputation guys get in before
that's
some
why I think
guys.
Fletcher's. I got Fletcher still with the advantage over Javon because of reputation. But
I
yeah,
think it's gonna be one of those things where people look like, wait, who's leading sacks? Okay, cool. Yeah, all right. That's the thing.
now if I told you, and but I'm going to tell you. So last one for me, Chris, and before I say it, read Chris and our friend Mike K at NJ.com. They do a tremendous job.
And his upcoming article about what's the community college again?
Ithaquamba. It's Ithaquamba in Northeast Louisiana. One of those places.
Okay, we're on the lookout for that one.
Now I lost my track. Oh, I got it back. Tackle. If I told, Trent Williams exists. Tyron Smith exists. So if you can only get one of the two, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, who you going with? Reputation or, everybody loves Jordan Mailata. Great story. 1,000 stories written about it. Which one of those two guys you lean towards?
That's tough. I'll go Lane because as much as Jordan's been dominant on the left side, I don't see that many dominant guys on the I just don't see that many dominant right tackles. And I'll say people are going to say, "Oh, right tackle's not left tackle's more important. You protect the blind side." But truly, when you look at the amount of yards the Eagles are able to get on that right side, and I think Jordan's helped a little bit more where you have Landon Dickerson there, so you have that much beef on there, so you get the road grade. So if it comes to the rushing numbers, and they're all doing that outside zone step, and they all get behind it, I think he's benefited. When you look at what Lane's doing, I know he missed the games, but he did that next to he had Brandon Brooks for a little bit, who's gone. You have Jack Driscoll, who's gone. Then you throw in, oh goodness, now I'm going to make myself look stupid because I'm having a mental lapse right now.
Nate
Herbig, thank you. Nate Herbig for that one too. Thank you.
Landon was playing right guard before he had to move to left guard when Isaac. So yeah, we're down
one of his worst games. Yeah,
fourth right guard. Yeah.
You're able to do that. You're helping the guy next to you so much. You're still playing at a very high level. You're doing well when it comes to your pass protection. You're running that much. I think I'm talking myself even more and more into this. Yeah, I'd probably go Lane. Lane on that one too when it comes to that.
Chris, great stuff. We appreciate whenever you do come on. Thank you much. I'll try not to get choked up the next time you join the show. But thanks for helping out with us today, bud.
Thank you guys very much. Make sure you get Kleenex as a sponsor because this is really tough, the times.
I'll send a box to your house.
Yes. I hope we do get Kleenex as a sponsor, by the way.
That'll be great.
That's great stuff. That's Chris Franklin from NJ.com here with us on Birds 365. All right, final segment coming up. We need to put a bow on the show. We need to put a bow on the Washington football team. Only they're going to be back. We're going to be down there in just 11 days taking on Washington. Giants coming up this Sunday. We got to at least take a peek at that game because it's the final segment of Birds.